Good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate Auntie Alera bringing me to the forefront like this, because usually I'm a reformer that operates behind the scenes. So my sphere of influence is the health sector. I'm going to start with the story that was very dear to me. On one of our medical outreach programs in a very rural community, an isolated community, I met this woman that told me a story about how her 1-year-old son died. She told me how her son had diarrhea. And because her community is kind of isolated and the nearest medical facility is about an hour away, she couldn't really get there, of course. And there's only one person in that village that has like a motorcycle that usually would take them to the nearest hospital. So, of course, she used some herbs that, of course, made the diarrhea worse. Then by the next day, when she got to the hospital, her son, weak in her arms, the hospital was overcrowded, with a lot of people everywhere. She saw health personnel run back and forth, but they were so overwhelmed and busy. By the time they got to her 1-year-old son had passed in her arms. This is actually a common story. So this, I don't know how you feel, but I know how I felt. I saw the pain in her eyes and I felt angry and frustrated and hurt, wondering why this all has to happen. There are many issues in the health sector, and I'm going to just skim through it with the short time that I have. We have, of course, the problem with access to health care. When we talk about access to health care, you hear people talk about universal health coverage. That's just providing basic care to the population. But there's a problem with that because we haven't yet developed the right tools to actually achieve that. Many of you here have heard of the National Health Insurance Scheme. Personally, I believe that that agency cannot achieve this mission with what is in place right now and needs a lot of restructuring, and that's a huge topic for another day. Another issue is with public and private partnership. The private health sector delivers, at least reportedly, delivers over 60% of the care in this country. And somehow the government has not yet engaged the private health sector in ways in which we can improve access to quality care. And that's something that, as a leader of an advocacy group, we've tried to work on so hard in the FCT, and we're making baby steps, but we still have a long way to go. Then I want to say something again about something else, and this is not just a headline, it's the brain drain. It is more than a headline. It's a massive, massive, massive situation. You have a lot of healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, leaving this country en masse. And what that will lead to, it will lead to a situation where we have a critical number of ill patients and very few health workers to take care of them. And so it's not something that we just need to be talking about, something we need to act on. And I mean, people tell me, oh, these doctors, they just go for greener pastures. I don't even think there's a problem with that. But it's deeper than that. If you think of, for example, if a medical school, you graduate from medical school, you are brilliant, I meet intelligent doctors, and they're struggling to get into specialist programs. Meanwhile, we have deficits in that area. We don't have that many specialists in our climb. And you know what? They can't get into this program because they don't know the right people. So it's not by merit. So of course, if other countries opens the door to these people, they're going to go in mass because they want to live their dreams and feel their opportunity. I train in the US too, so I understand some of the pains that they feel when they try to go out there. Because here we don't have the right working conditions in hospitals. I've experienced watching someone die in a public hospital here, and trust me, it's not easy. Just because I didn't have the tools to save their lives. It's not something you want to do over and over again. So we have to fix that. Then another very important thing is the underfinancing of the health sector. In 2018, 3.9% was allocated to financing the health sector. We're not going to make any progress with that amount. Remember, when they say primary health centers, and primary care is actually very important in advancing the healthcare. People don't talk about preventive health and primary care, but that's actually the backbone of moving forward. So we have 33,000 primary healthcare centers and only 20% is functional. That's unacceptable because that's actually how people can get care in those rural areas. So we need money to finance the health sector. The year before that, it was about 4.1%. And in 2001, the African Union met in Abuja, and there was what we call the Abuja Declaration, where they pledged or declared, according to World Health, to allocate about 15% of the budget to the healthcare sector. And now we're talking about 4.1, 3.9. Where are we going to? We have to look for ways to reverse that. But that got me thinking, got me really thinking, because most times I sit on my bed and I say, God, give me a strategy, give me something that I could contribute, that we can turn this around, because we're losing too many lives. And what got to me, I now opened the paper once and I saw this Central Bank of Nigeria intervention into the textile industry. Then I saw fashion and movie. And I'm not saying these sectors are irrelevant, but it made me realize that there's no intervention for health, yet we're in crisis. Then I started thinking, why is that? Then I realized that there's one thing we're not doing right. We're not engaging you. Because see, if I asked you in the beginning what you thought of that story, most people here blame the doctors and the nurses and all the health in the hospital was bad. But you don't realize that what you see as patients is a function of the system. The system is not working right, that's what you see. And so I realized that my job today is to stand here to reform your mindset to make healthcare a priority. Thank you. Because, you see, the leaders of today were like us yesterday, all right? And they became leaders. They were voted in or appointed in. And so if you don't make healthcare a priority, when you become a leader, it will matter to you on that seat. And another thing I thought of is this. When I did a talk like this once, and I stood up and I asked the crowd, I said, how many of you have had an annual checkup in the last 1 year? And very few hands came up. Then I asked this question, how many of you have bought Ashwebi for any occasion in the last 1 year? And I saw a lot of hands up. And then I realized our priorities are misplaced. Then I realized that if we can convince each person, one by one, to make healthcare a priority, then we will see change. The system will respond to you. Because, you see, you underestimate the influence of your voice. You vote in the leaders. You vote, no matter how biased we think the system is, if we rise as one voice of influence to stand on something that matters to our lives, we'll definitely one day get what we want. So I want to give you an assignment for the next 1 year. Every time you have money and you're thinking of buying something frivolous, like maybe an Ashwebi, put it into an account of some sort, and you can join with some of your friends, and then you can come and do one project into your community or another community that I guess you're led to, and do something like, for example, put in a borehole. So for example, in that community I spoke about, if they had a borehole that could give them clean water, maybe the son wouldn't have got diarrhea. You can also come together and go into communities and then do programs, like little programs, like do what you do, contribute like ORS, or even work with the local hospitals to contribute certain items that will save lives. And you'll see that we do that one by one, we will make a difference. Don't underestimate your value or your importance in this fight. So let's make that an assignment in the next 1 year. Every time you want to spend money on the wrong thing, that people are dying from things that are preventable, and we have to work together to stop it. So I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite quotes. It says, by Lao Tzu, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And I'm going to modify that now to say, a journey to a better health system begins with you. Thank you very much.